Post-Traumatic Thriving. We are here in our episode number 4 with Jessie Buttafuoco.
I was thinking it was 39.
It feels like it. There's so much, it's great content. I'm here with my co-host, TanyaBrown.
Hey, everyone.
Nice to see you. Jessie, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, we're so glad you're here and
Yeah.
have spent like literally the day with us.
Literally
like,
the day.
Like, no kidding. But it's just like such great info.
Well,
and
it's fascinating. I think for a listener to be a part of, on all ends, it's you don't get opportunities like this to really unpeel a lot of your layers. And so I'm even learning stuff, here about me. And it's just, I don't know, it's a wonderful opportunity. So thank you.
Oh,
well,
you're
thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're very welcome. And,
Glad you're enjoying it.
and to recap the story, everybody knows Joey and
Mary Jo.
named after Mary and Joseph from the Bible. That in and of itself is
and Amy
gem.
Fisher. And now we're here with Jessie, the daughter.
Yeah. So
I love that. It's like, that old story.
No.
You watch the news, you think you know all about it.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't know all about it.
You don't know all about it.
Like with your thing, when you're going through that thing, I knew a lot of the inside story, and I would, of course, watch the news like everyone else is like, they got like 10% of it.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot going on and plus a lot of inaccuracies.
Oh, tons of inaccuracies.
And hopefully we're kind of, doing some kind of services, getting the real story out, in our conversation
Well,
today.
I think what's great about this is you're allowing your guests and me in particular to control their narrative.
Yeah.
I'm telling the story.
Yeah.
You're not listening to a produced segment that's made by a conglomerate that has a bunch of, rules and regulations that they need to follow. And, in terms of just like, or money, or, there's just so many ulterior motives behind true crime productions, especially. Yeah. And the here is different. Here's in order to help people thrive, survive, dive, or whatever, it's different. This is the motivation for this conversation we've had in the last 3 episodes. If you missed, go back and listen.
Oh yeah.
It's different than trying to exploit or just do it to have, a name on your roster. This is something magical here.
Yeah. Thanks.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
you're part of that.
Part of it.
For sure.
Cool.
Yeah. So the first question, right? Thriving, if you go to the post-traumatic growth literature where, a lot of this foundation came from, the first step, it's spirituality. And I just want to ask you, point blank, where did spirituality, God, religion, or not, how did that all kind of play into the person you are today?
Good question. Because my relationship with God, universe, whatever you want to call it, higher power, has always been present in my life, but it's changed throughout my life. So growing up, I grew up in the church. I grew up in a Catholic church. I was baptized, Holy Communion, altar girl. I was given the communion to the priest, washing his hands and in the church choir and like all that kind of stuff. And I was very active in that community. And I kind of enjoyed that growing up, going to the carnival, the St. Rose Carnival in the summer and things like that. And my grandmother worked at the church. Like my mother went to school at that church. Mary and Joe. So we've been a very God, I guess, family-ish. But my mother was also traumatized by her Catholic upbringing. So she didn't push it on me very much. I just wanted to be in the choir because I wanted to be a star. And I just want to be an altar girl so I can go up on the stage in front of the congregation and ring the bell. So I'm going to be totally honest. Not all eyes on me.
The entertainer.
Yeah, always. I was like, ring the bells, fancy in my gown. But you know what? Actually, when I moved from New York to California in 96, so trauma happened 92, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 or 5 years later. One of the first things I wanted to do when I came out here in 8th grade in California was get involved in a church, make some friends, who knows, get started. And I remember going to a church in the Valley and wanting to be in the church choir. And when the priest read my name on the paper, he goes, "Oh, but if you go, any relation to that clown, Joey?" And I died inside. And I said, "Yeah, that clown's my father." And so from that point on, I had a very complicated relationship with the church and God. And like, this is a priest. You're clowning my father. Where's your grace that they talk about? Where's your forgiveness that you talk about? The head of this congregation that I'm trying to come to for a sense of peace and belonging is coming at my family with all these preconceived notions already, forget it. And so I kind of didn't have much of a spiritual life from 8th grade through high school. Didn't really pray that much or anything like that. I was always really connected to my grandmother, who died when my dad was 11. Her name was Louise. That's who my middle name's after. She was like an opera singer. She was musical theater. I feel like I connect with her energy very much. And so I've always prayed to her and thought of her as my guardian angel. So then once I got to college, my resident advisor was like, girl, I hear you singing in the shower. I need you to go to gospel choir now. And so I was like, fine, whatever. And I went to practice and I wound up loving it. And, really found my voice there. The director, it was like being, in a Black Baptist church, and it was just welcoming and spiritual and, praying to God. But at the same time, I'm active in drinking and drugging and all that. And so I was very conflicted inside with that. And that's when I really started to praying, like almost like, God, I know I'm throwing my life away. I just don't know how to fix it. And so that's when I started, I think, getting back to some sort of, a power greater than myself, or starting to have those inner conversations of like, hey man, I know you see I'm fucking up right now, but like, if you can just help me get through this, like I promise, like it kind of started becoming
bargaining again.
Yeah. Because my voice started, I used to be a first soprano. I partied my way into the tenor section, like I am raspy and low now. And I started messing up my God-given gifts, and I started recognizing that. I started feeling guilty about that, but I couldn't do anything about it. And so I was like, God, I know I'm fucking up everything you gave me. I just don't know how to do it any differently. Please help. I can't stop. I don't know how, and so all that kind of went along, and I'm singing, oh Lord, I've sinned, but you're still calling my name, and trying to get through that. And then, what's interesting, after graduating college, I worked with a lot of children. I'd produce and direct a lot of, after school theater programs for kids and things like that. And where my business that I started, which I started at 25 years old, took me was in private Catholic schools and Jewish schools. And so I wasn't necessarily actively seeking out God or religion, but it wound up being a part of my life anyway. And I find that to be some divine power.
Totally.
Working,
that's the universe. That's God.
Because I was working at Catholic schools, and I was, literally doing jazz hands under Jesus on the cross. But more so I was involved with families that had a good base, feeling like it was a community. I was providing after school theater programs. Yes. But, I was changing children's lives, and their parents knew it. And it became a thing of, we're all doing the play, and we're all going to go to Jessie's class. And, it became this, beautiful thing in those environments for that. And then I was working at a temple in Beverly Hills, and like, your Catholic girl over here became like Jewish by association. I'm teaching, preschool. I was a preschool teacher at the time, teaching, stories of Hanukkah and Passover and like all this kind of, religion and spirituality and having dinner at the rabbi's house and, and all this kind of stuff, not actively seeking it out, but this is where the universe put me. And it put me with people that were nice people and good people and did live a spiritual life. And so I wasn't necessarily actively living that spiritual life, but I was getting the benefits of it from the people around me that were, if that makes any sense.
And it sounds like they were appreciating your gifts and appreciating you.
They were. I recently got a text message from one of my families. Their daughter's now 16, but she was 3 when she started with me.
Oh my God.
And the father, who was a cantor at a temple, he was like, I just thought of you the other day, and I just wanted to reach out and let you know how special you made like my family's life while you were in it. And with what you did for my kids and what you did for our community and our friend circle, because they would all, go around and see their shows and flowers, it was like, it was a big thing, and they were in a part of my life for a long time and vice versa. And it was really lovely to have them reach out to me and just acknowledge that.
And share it.
And it was at a time where I needed to hear that too, of just like, cause I was feeling, I don't know, that I was useless and hopeless, and just God does that too. I'm like, girl, you're not here. And so I found myself like in that area but not necessarily like, oh, good for you. That's cute. You have religion, moving on. Like, but that's not for me kind of a moment. But here I was writing and producing and directing Hanukkah plays because they really don't exist. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll just write some new ones. And I started making parody songs, with the Beatles to the Maccabees, Maccabee, Star David is for me, stuff like that. And so I wound up still absorbing all of these, religion. I have a tough time with religion. Organized religion to me is a sham, but the messages of it and the spirituality of it is something I can connect with. Yeah. And I consider myself today a very spiritual person. I'm trying to seek, you were talking about Jesus earlier, even. And I was recently be like, what happened to him between 12 and 25? Where'd he go? And so I'm starting to research that. I'm like, oh, he was traveling the world learning spiritual principles that he then passed on to his followers. He just didn't come to him one day when he's 30. Like, where'd he learn that from? And so it's like, all of these, I really think us human beings, I'm like, this is maybe where I'm sipping the Kool-Aid, y'all, but you asked a question. Sipping the Kool-Aid. Us as human beings on this planet, humans have been on this planet for a long time, and they didn't, not necessarily in 1995 or 2005, 2020 that we're in now. What I tend to think deep and go spiritual of what is the purpose here? What are we supposed to be on this planet for? It's not to make money. It's not to drive a car and deplete the ozone layer. This wasn't always here. So what were people doing back then and why? And I tend to think it was more spiritual things going on, whatever created this earth, whatever created this human beings, whether it's God, aliens, matter. I don't know. I don't do science, but all I know is I think the more spiritual I've gotten, the more peace I've gotten.
For sure.
The more I've been able to replace my fear with faith.
Yeah.
And the more connected to it and the more open I am, I wake up every morning now. I say, God, please let me, see the signs of the universe that, you're pointing me in the right direction. And if I tend to get in my own way, please help me figure out how not to. Yeah. And lately, a lot of times my attention will get drawn to numbers, like on a clock or on a license plate or something. And we call them angel numbers. And I'm big into it. And so
222.
Right when I left,
11,
I saw 404 when I was headed to the bathroom. And so all these numbers have different meanings. If you look them up, 1111 angel number means this. If you look up certain numbers, and my attention always gets drawn to 222 or 444 or 111. And so it's like, I think my universe, or whatever that means, has figured out that that's how I see the signs.
Connect.
And so now it happens quite a lot. Now, am I just on my phone scrolling and I happen to see it every time? I don't know, but it makes me feel better because every time I see it, I go, it's usually in times when I'm either scared or contemplation. And it comes as just like a sign of you're on the right path. Girl. Yeah. And lately it's been coming in the form of an orange car. Why? I don't know.
An orange car.
Yes. I don't know why. Maybe because when I was working at a adolescent rehab center not too long ago, one of the girls in there kind of brought it up, and then it became kind of a thing. But then she brought it up, and now I'm just actively seeing orange cars. I don't know. But it's happening in moments of contemplation when I'm actively having that conversation with universe or meditating or whatever, and questioning, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right whatever? An orange car will pop by. And I was like, I see you. I see you, universe. I give a shout out to whatever is out there doing that. So much so, last week, I was in a major contemplative fear situation, financial insecurity. We're still working through those skills. But I was in it and I was scared and I was really talking to God of just is there an end in sight? Because I don't see it. And I was getting upset and I was really going there and starting to spin out. And then at that moment, I get stopped at a red light. Yellow light comes on, red light stops from the first one. And as I look up to the billboard that's above me, it's a giant orange car on a billboard. And as I see that, the AM station that I'm listening to, because apparently I'm 105 years old and I love AM radio. As I see this orange car and the AM literally says something along the lines of, just have faith and it'll work out. And it was one of those boo-doo-doo-doo moments of just I see you, God. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And it squashed my fear. And I said, guess what? I don't have the answer to my problem right now, but it will come.
Yeah.
And I can spend that time afraid, upset, anxious, feeling like crap and feeling the need to escape. or I could spend this time and say, it's going to work out because I'm doing all I can on my end. And I think I'm doing it the right way because I'm trying to be as open to the signs as possible, trying not to let my ego be the one to decide things and trying to let myself be guided by the angels that I believe are guiding me.
Amen.
Wow.
Beautifully said.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So
yes, I'm spiritual.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I want to use the language you're comfortable with. So you feel like a connection with the universe.
I do.
And you're a spiritual being and you like to, sounds to me, kind of connect with beyond the five senses.
Absolutely.
Into the sixth sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll come a lot in nature too. Like I'll get a lot of butterflies coming around like, oh, so here's a good one. You're going like this. So I actively do not talk to my father. Through my work in recovery and sobriety, I have learned that his toxicity is just bleeding into my everything and that I needed to cut that cord.
Okay.
Not because I haven't tried hard enough. I've accepted, I forgive. There's no anger I have towards the man. He is the common denominator to my problems. And when I cut him off is when I started to thrive.
So, okay. So you're self-aware that separation is good for you.
Absolutely. 100%. He still keeps trying to come in my life because, he thinks of me as a possession and he doesn't like that I'm creating this boundary, but it is what it is. However, a couple months ago, I was at a crossroads with that, I guess you could say, in terms of he keeps trying to, wiggle his way back in. And I keep trying to just nicely shut that down. And via email, I'm not having physical conversation with him because he blocked. But I, hey, are you interested in seeing me? No. Are you interested in getting together? Blah, blah, blah. And so I just poignantly had to write a devastating letter. Like it must have devastated him or not because he doesn't feel, I don't know. I needed to say it for me. And it was basically like, listen, like, I need to protect myself from you. Like, I love you still. And there were great moments. Thank you for the water balloon fights. Thank you for almost putting me through school before the SWAT team came and I had to figure out the rest of my life. Thank you, for drawing a palm tree on my lunch when mom was in rehab and you made my lunch that week. There was almost like, so listen, there were good times, Dad, but like, unfortunately, your personality disorder and your life choices greatly affected me as a human being. And I simply can't have that in my life anymore. So I kindly ask you to respect these wishes. And I have no desire to have a relationship with you. I greatly hope that you do heal and find a way to feel and live out the remainder of your life in a happy place, but it's not going to be with me. So,
Powerful.
It was. And it was, but it was a thought out. It wasn't written in haste and emotion. Like I talked to my therapist about it. I probably sat on that letter for about a month, revised it, took some mean things out when I was like, get things better, I was like, no, because that's not the point of this letter. Right. I don't want to incite anger. I just need to vocalize. I need to prove my point here. Not even prove a point. I just need to set a boundary. That he's so good at manipulation, right, and winding me down, and this is not going to be that time. So I've given that plenty of times, and it's literally wound me almost killing myself. As I told him that, I was like, listen, like the chaos that you caused me in my life, I almost killed myself over. I can't do that again. I'm finally out of the gutter.
Good for
I'm
you.
Not letting you back in it.
That took such courage.
It was, but you know what? And then this is where the spiritual part comes in. So the day I'm sending that letter or thinking of sending it, I was like, all right, universe, I think the draft is ready. I was like, is this the moment this is me saying goodbye to my dad, basically. Yeah. Whether he believes it or not, for me, this was my final, I'm not going to have a dad after this. And I'm getting emotional because I'm still upset that I never had the dad that, I see other people have.
Every young lady, every girl needs wants a dad. Yeah.
And so thank you, Boo. She's handing me a tissue if you're just listening. And so, when sending that, this is final for me. So this is a big deal. And so I was like talking to my higher power, just like, all right, this is what I'm going to do right now. Like, should I send it? Should I not? I was talking to my mom about him in her office. My mom and I are together. And then all of a sudden I look out the window and there are 12 doves on my front lawn. Doves. 12. It's like, this is not a nature, thing going on. There are 12 doves on my lawn. on because I asked for a sign.
You got it.
And I got it. And
12
I said
doves. I mean, maybe,
and like doves
maybe
mean
2.
geese, right? 12. 12.
It is an even number. So good.
Right?
Everybody was
Is it
happy.
aviary or whatever they call it. No. 12 freaking doves. And I have a witness because my mother was there. And I was like,
What? That's your
that's
sign.
my sign. And doves, they're peace.
They're peace.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
Letting
I was
go,
like, this is
freedom.
right. And so I was like,
Love.
and that's another one of those signs for me of like that girl.
That was
What
a big
freaking
one.
And I've never seen him again. I've never, and it's just, that was too powerful and too in my face.
Yeah.
And I literally just went, send,
Yeah.
There you go.
bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Yeah. That
What
was your
I've
sign.
heard is, I think 2 episodes.
Wow, that's
And I had a
powerful.
lot of those.
Yeah, 2 episodes ago, you said you were a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hear you saying in the Thrive stage is you went from the people pleaser to really self-respect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Setting
Yeah.
the boundary.
Did I get that right?
Nailed
Yeah.
it.
Nailed it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to kind of go back and because you said 2 things I want to just kind of reconcile in my mind where you're coming from. You had all these families at various synagogues and churches and these places that really were, you kind of reclaimed a sense of value that you were providing really a wonderful thing for their kids and for those families. And that you loved and respected them and they loved and respected you. And you had this kind of almost sense of community or maybe entirely a sense of community that was really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, organized religion's a sham. And I think I personally agree with you in large part, but not entirely. I think there's enlightened religions and I think there are unenlightened religions. That's kind of
Yes,
where
I
I'm
agree to
coming-
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
I agree to
So-
that. Not all of it is, but
Okay. I just
think,
want to
yeah.
kind of clear that up.
yeah, I think when people start taking the Lord's name in vain and start, trying to make money off it and have ulterior
Yeah.
motives like that, that's the kind of organized religion I don't get
Yeah,
into.
yeah.
But if it's, being of service to a community with
Yeah.
not expecting anything in return,
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
Yeah.
Well, amen to that, sister. I mean,
Hey. Amen.
well, no, I was just reading. I just learned about this.
Raise it.
Have you guys heard about
Hallelujah.
what's it called? The Decate. Anyway, it's a first century writing from the early church fathers of Christianity, and it's like a pamphlet. And it basically goes through the rules of Christianity. And I was reading it this week because it's very short. And I just wanted to think how early Christians thought as opposed to these mega churches today. And they said in there, if a prophet comes to your home, invite them in for one night. In other words, if they stay longer, they're a freeloader and get rid of them. It actually said this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it said, if a prophet ever asks for money, they're a false prophet.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's really simple and that's really clean.
Yeah.
And I can get behind that. I mean,
Yeah,
there are people
it's
with,
simple.
I guess what I'm saying is there are people that have spiritual powers that clearly I don't have. But if they're legitimate, they're not trying to monetize this religion.
Right.
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 Does
and they're
that
not using
sound
their
fair?
Yeah, makes
religious
sense.
fame to hawk their books
Right.
or,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think we're on the,
Yeah.
I'm tracking with you.
Yeah.
I'm,
But I do think there's a lot of power in spirituality.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's helped squash my fear a lot because I grew up and I walked around with a lot of fear all the time. So now when I feel those feelings come back up, I immediately start connecting with
Yeah.
a higher power
Right.
or
Right.
the universe or
Pray, meditate,
contemplate. Yeah,
stay
yeah.
still, be
Right.
be still. I think, that's why people are so, they're scared to meditate. They're scared to pray. They're scared to, find spirituality because we're so busy all the time
Yeah.
that nobody sits still enough to feel that joy, to feel that peace.
Mhm.
I know on days when I'm not connected, my day is a hot mess.
Yes.
A hot mess.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And now I'm able to catch it. But back when my friend Troy died, and, I'm sure you read that in the book, that is when I hated God.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said to me, how can you hate God? I'm like, oh, it's real.
Mm-hmm.
It's real.
Oh, I hated God last week when I got a ticket for not being hands-free on the freeway.
Uh-oh.
Said, "Fuck you," I was cursing God.
Mhm.
And then I said, oh, sorry. But, you know.
I got one of those too.
Yeah.
I was
And I'm like, so not that person. I was so mad.
he was like, didn't you see me? I'm like, obviously not.
Right. I was like, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But it's the, you know, you can hate God or you can love God, and by God, I
Yeah,
mean,
peace.
you know, whatever that
Higher
means
power.
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mean the white Jesus on the crown of thorns that come out
Right.
at Easter. Like
Yeah.
he's from Egypt.
It could
He
be
wasn't even
anything.
white.
It could be anything.
Like, come on now, you know, so it's
What-
definitely.
What I'm getting from you is that you really are trying to connect to a higher power.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's obviously something that I don't know that our 3.5 pound brains can really wrap our heads around what that fully looks like.
Mhm.
But I think we get glimpses.
Mhm.
I think is what you're saying. Like the 12
The
dove
12
story,
doves.
that's a glimpse into something.
Yep.
I mean, what are the odds in LA?
Right. 12 doves.
I don't think I've ever seen a dove, and I've lived here my
Right.
whole life.
Oh, seriously?
Like,
no.
like one, let alone a white one. You know, so
I remember when my dad died, we had this cactus outside of his bedroom, and he died at home. And there's a bloom on this cactus that only blooms once a year. And the day he died, 3:40 a.m., literally it went open.
No.
I have a picture of it.
wow.
Yep.
Some universe.
I have a
stuff.
picture of it, and it
Wow.
only blooms once a year, or
Yeah.
no, one time. It only
Yeah.
blooms one time, and it bloomed on like
Wow.
5 minutes after my dad passed.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom just like sat there and she just went, because we were all in our courtyard, and she just went, like, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Wow.
And you know what's
So-
cool? I hear a lot of those kind of stories in 12-step programs, because
Yeah.
12-step programs have a spiritual component to them as
Sure.
well.
Mhm.
And so I know that there's something else out there.
Oh,
Miracles
absolutely.
happen. I mean, the fact
Yeah.
that my mother is alive, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
Amy
Yeah.
Fisher tried to shoot her twice. The gun jammed.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
they found extra casings next to her body. And so, like, what's that? That's, I feel like, some divine intervention stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, for sure.
I hear you loud and clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, and I love
For
your
sure.
whole story. I just got to say, I'm just
Mesmerized.
a big fan. You know, a lot of people that go through trauma, I don't know the numbers, but I know friends that I have and family that I have been through traumas, and they end up hard, stone cold atheist.
Yeah.
And
I see it a lot.
I'm going to tell you what I think, and then tell me what you think. I on one hand, I don't want to be judgmental because I haven't been through what they've been through, but I think it's sometimes it's a landing place. In other words, just, you know, it's like your mom in the hospital. You just have to turn the dials off, everything else in your life, and just heal, you know, and that's it. And I think that's maybe part of the healing process. But what I've learned more and more as I get older and see my, friends and family evolve, is that that's kind of usually a temporary holding pattern until they kind of get healed to the point where they kind of entertain the idea of spirituality at some level again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know but I admire the fact that you stayed connected at some level spiritually through this whole shit show
Yeah.
that you went through.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And I've had my periods of like not believing or be like, if God's real, there's no way because he's putting me through X, Y, and Z. And so
Yeah.
I've definitely had those moments too.
Yeah.
100% I've turned my back on it. And when the priest called my dad a clown, you know, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. It's rocked my moments. But
Mhm.
I think overall now is my 38 years on this planet. Being spiritual has made me feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
connecting to that and
Yeah.
realizing that earthly events happen because earthly people are making them happen.
Right.
Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
We
I
don't
feel
have
better
an-
having a higher.
Yeah, that's it. We don't know like why these things, happen to
Yeah.
good people, to bad people. We just don't know why.
Right.
But we need to do our way we need to do like our lives to find that peace every day, and that, again, that doesn't need to be going to church or doing meditation. Play with your dog, do something every day that brings your heart to joy, to smile, like do something that lifts your spirits,
Brings you in the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gets you connected.
Well, one thing's for sure is God, whatever God looks like. I don't think our 3.5 pound brains can wrap our heads. God is not a helicopter parent where he's
Right.
hovering over us, stopping all the bad things from happening. Don't tip your your bicycle over. Don't let that glass of milk spill. I mean, God is hands off in a lot of ways, but I think that there are glimpses that we get. And, I, with COVID and everything, a buddy of mine from high school just invited me down the street to Mariners Church. Have you been down there?
Yeah.
I really liked it. I really liked it.
Oh, it's big. It's a huge campus.
Well, it's huge. And, mega churches have a certain thing, but I got to say, it was a really
I love the pastor there. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. So I think that there's just different avenues. Yeah. And I think that people need to connect however they connect with that higher power.
It's kind of like looking for a therapist, right? Like if you want to kind of, explore churches, figure out a few. I've gone to some churches and I'm like, oh, this is so not for me. Oh, okay, I'll stay here for a while. I like this. It's kind of like you got to try a therapist out. You got to try a church out. Somebody had told me too, I worked for a Mission for Michael Obe rehab here now in San Clemente. It was in Dana Point. And somebody said this, he's like, religion is like, there's a monastery out in the foothills here in Orange County. And there's like these little pathways that go all throughout the land, and each pathway leads to a different religion. So there's like Hindu, Jewish, Christian, Catholicism, and each one, basically what he said, his name was Drew Fisher. Oh.
Who are you talking about?
Drew Fisher, apparently. His name was Drew Fisher. He ran.
Trigger warning.
Oops.
This table's so heavy.
But he explained this. He said, it's the same message, just a different vessel. It's the same message, just a different vessel. He's like, we all are carrying buckets of water, right? It's like, it's the same thing. It's the same bucket. It's the same water. It's the same message, just a different, organization.
I like
different
that.
vessel.
There's a term I learned from my sister. It's prima theologia. Have you heard that one?
No.
It basically means that at the start of the world, God disseminated through all philosophies and religions certain tenets that show up everywhere.
Yeah.
Loving your neighbor, loving yourself, being respectful of others, just the basic moral codes that we all kind of know about, not necessarily always do.
Right.
But that's that concept basically, which I think is a nice concept.
It is.
Okay. So in thriving, what else? You've mentioned it, but you're in Pepperdine. You went to UC Santa Barbara, great school. I went to UCLA, so we're kind of like cousins there. That's super cool. And then you're at Pepperdine earning your master's in psychology. That's super cool. And you revealed this morning that you're going to go for a PhD, it sounds like.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
As I started this mental health journey on a whim, because in 2020, when COVID happened, all the schools shut down. So all of my children's theater production shut down. And so the business that I had grown and cultivated for 10 years was no longer.
No. And
so I was like, now what? And so I was like, maybe I'll go back to school. And I had, paid off my student loans by then. So I was like on a fresh, clean slate and was like, all right, let's do it. And literally the idea came into my head, and that's God too. And within a month, I was in school and then accepted and enrolled, and financial aid worked out. And it was just like, okay, this is the path now. This is what we're doing. And it helped me heal so much because it legitimized all the feelings I had inside with actual technical knowledge of like psychology. And this is what was happening to me at the time. So that's been lovely. And as it's going, and as I've been participating in more productions and things like that, I too have started, I guess you could say there's like group. It's like a random group of people who have also been exploited by the media and have experienced public shame. And so we've kind of been sharing our stories with each other, and like something has to change. This isn't, it's friends and families of victims and public figures where it's like this. We're all being treated this way. We all have these stories of being asked to do another take because I need to cry more,
right?
Or, and it's like, and it's from people in all walks of life. And we're starting this, listen, things need to change. And so I was like, I'm really inspired to go now. I want to get a doctorate in, I blank, take that again. Sorry, she's taking my picture. And so I want to get a doctorate degree in media psychology because it really isn't out there all that much. Because as I'm in school, I've been writing a lot about my family and the psychology behind public shame, what it does to people and all that kind of stuff. And I've had to do research projects on that and look up peer-reviewed journal articles, and they just don't exist. I have met one woman, her name is Dr. Christy Marie, and she just graduated from Fielding University. And her dissertation was on the effects of public shame, because she too has a story and an experience, and she now has a doctorate degree and wrote her dissertation on it. But that's like the first.
Wow.
That's coming out this year.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I'm doing my research and I'm putting the keywords in the search engine, nothing is coming up about public shame, public scrutiny, the effects of massive media attention. It doesn't exist. It really doesn't. I found, I think, one article on public hate, and the article was more about how to measure it rather than
how to
the
fix
effects
it.
of it and how to fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
But even now, okay, great. Now we have something to measure it. So now maybe I could take that and start measuring it, and then I can be the one to have the effects. I'm not quite sure. All I know is that there's a need for it, and it's lacking. And especially in our world today, which is so media heavy on so many levels for so many different age groups. So many people are going viral every second. So many kids are being affected by the media and what they see on it every day. And so I just really feel like maybe this is one of my life purposes, is that I had to go through being Jessie Buttafuoco and going through all that public shame as a child, seeing it from the ground up and developing in it, so I can be the one to provide the research and make some changes in this industry.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Maybe.
No, maybe.
That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe.
You know,
Sounds good to me.
Because I really don't want the generations after me to have to go with what I went through.
Yeah.
And I just really want to put psychological safety measures in place in true crime productions.
Yeah, you were talking.
Simple.
Oh, sorry. We were talking earlier on our break where you said to be kind of a consultant, right? So, you know, for people like us who had to do these interviews where, you know, 6 hours and they only take two minutes,
right?
Or they're telling us what to say, what to do, what to wear, what not to wear,
and bullying you,
and
into
bullying
doing
you,
it.
right? Exactly.
And forcing you to say things you don't want to say.
Exactly.
And then you say it once, not thinking they're going to use it, and that's what they use.
Yeah, exactly.
And just completely being railroaded and exploited for the needs of production companies, and not at all trying to help or alleviate the stress of the people that are being interviewed, because it's traumatic and you get re-traumatized.
Exactly.
And so I think it's important we need on-set liaisons for that.
For sure.
People like you and I who have been through it, who have been interviewed 10,000 times to help the victims either feel safer so they can really tell their story, or help the production companies be more trauma informed on what not to say to trigger your guests.
Exactly.
What to, like a lot of times, and because I've been trying to pitch it around to different networks of like, hey, do you need this, service? And they're terrified because they think I'm going to shut them down. And they think I'm going to tell the person, you don't have to answer that. But it's not about that. If y'all just listen to me and what you used to do to us, you can change the way in which you approach these people or talk to these people.
Absolutely.
Or have a conversation.
It'd be a better interview.
It would be a better interview.
Yeah.
But you come at it, these production companies come at it with this just insensitive. I got to get the clip. I got to get the shot. I got to make sure the sound audio sounds good.
Yeah.
Moving on. Like that happened to me. I was 3 hours in an interview chair and one of the biggest conglomerates on this planet that does true crime production. And as soon as they're done with me, the cameras went off. They went into their stuff and they left me in a room.
Yeah.
And I was like,
That's what
I
they
guess
do.
we're over. And I packed up my own backpack. I found my way out of the building. The camera guy found me in the elevator. He's like, they all left you? I was like, yeah.
They don't care.
They all went to the editing room because they have a deadline.
Yeah.
They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
Yeah.
And they think that flying you out and paying for your hotel is enough. And that doesn't pay my bills.
No.
It doesn't.
No.
And people can say what they want to say about, well, how are you making money off this tragedy? I'm not.
Yeah.
But we should.
Yeah.
Because how many times are you going to ask me to sit in this chair?
Yeah.
Oh,
Right?
how many millions and millions and millions of dollars in advertising revenues were generated off your case and your case?
There's movies.
Yeah, movies.
That nobody even told us about.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody even gave us a warning.
Right.
So, yeah.
So enough is enough. And they use an excuse of, well, it's true crime. It's a real news. So we can't pay you for it. and they find their own loopholes because they're giant conglomerates and no one has the power to go against them. And then, I got the power.
Yeah,
I will make the research, because if you need research that what you're doing is detrimental to people's mental health, then I guess I will be the one to create that research.
Yeah.
So I can maybe lobby and get some laws made. I don't even know. I'm honestly at the beginning of all this. I just feel it in my soul that this is what I need to do.
I think you're onto something. HUGE. As long as we're using FINE.
Yeah. HUGE.
No, it's really huge.
It is huge.
I mean, you guys have had a lot more media experience than me, but going back to Heaven's Gate, once I was in charge of all the media going through the house. I was in charge of pretty much everything. And so the media called and they wanted to film something in the house. And it was a Saturday and I was watching the kids. So I'm a hands-on dad and I had 2 or 3 little kids at the time. And so we went down to Heaven's Gate in San Diego and I had the kids in the backyard. I said, you can go swimming while I just kind of unlock the house and do the thing. And I told the media, you film anything you want, but film the pool, but don't film my kids in the pool.
Yeah.
Well, guess what they did?
They did.
Oh,
yeah. Of course.
Network, you would all recognize.
Yeah.
So
they're so insensitive.
Yeah, it's like, you know what?
They just want the drama, the sensationalism. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't care.
And I think now we're starting to see the effects of that as a whole of a nation. Look at our suicide rates. Look at our depression rates. Look at all of our anxiety rates. Like maybe it has something to do with the media that's been shoved in our face.
Yeah.
That's exploitative.
Yeah.
And that's, desensitizing and all of that.
Well, putting kind of a code of ethics into place and calling this out for what it is and putting some basic rules of decency into play.
Right. They're out there. They're just not legally binding, so they don't abide by them.
Yeah.
Right.
I can give suggestions till I'm blue in the face, but until someone's
In
losing
paper,
money or getting a lawsuit, you know.
Well,
so something bad happens.
So maybe I need to be the one to create the research, figure it out, and make it legal.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't even know what that looks like. Anybody a lobbyist out there? How that work?
Well, you know what? Something's just jotted my memory. Do you guys remember the something swan? It was like taking the ugly swan or the beauty swan, that reality television show where they took somebody who was not very good looking and they transformed this person.
Yes-ish.
Okay.
Yes, it's ringing a bell.
I forgot what the name of the show was, but there was a case where a contestant tried to commit suicide or actually took their own life. I can't remember. So maybe that could be, a good, maybe you can Google that, because I remember they were talking about doing something like that, because it's like, wow, maybe we need to start bringing in a psychologist or a psychiatrist, before these contestants come in, because it's
happens. They have that. I actually had to do that. I participated in season 12 of The Voice, and they did have me meet with psychologists. They did have me take a psych test and an IQ test and do all that, but that's to save their own ass. Yeah. That's not to help the contestant.
Exactly.
That's to wheedle out the crazies, so their liability and their risk factor gets lower.
Yeah.
And to say, oh, well, we did this. But after I'm traumatized after telling my story to, investigative ID channel, and then they leave me hanging with no emotional support to process that experience.
Not even the courtesy of showing you where the door is.
Right. And so it's just like things in this, that we need to be more trauma informed.
It was ID that did that to me
ID
too.
Is the worst, apparently, from what I've heard. Because I've been getting with like Amanda Knox, who, is the queen of public shame and false. She was falsely convicted and like all that stuff. And her name is forever tied to that case in Italy.
Right.
Forever, no matter what she does. And so she's on this team I'm talking about of like, we need to legitimize something here. We're not just news bites. We're people with stories, and we deserve to be treated decently.
Yeah.
Well, Jessie, there's something I got to share with you.
Sure.
Okay. I worked on the Bikini Atoll case, and I was on an island in the middle of nowhere where the nuclear tests went off. When you see those big pictures of atom bombs, that was all on the Bikini Atoll. And I went to this one outer island, and we landed on a boat. Nobody had stepped on this island in 50 years. And it was still radioactive. And so I'm with this little group of experts from around the world. And I noticed a older gentleman way down the beach, sitting on a log, way down the beach. And I thought, I don't know what's up, but there's something up. And something just told me to go say hi. And I went down to him, and he was the most mild-mannered, gentle, kind gentleman. And he told the story about the day the bomb went off.
Mm-hmm.
And the United States government detonated the Bravo test, the biggest atmospheric test in world history. And that night, ash started falling on the island. The kids thought it was snow. They'd never been in the snow before. And his daughter died from radiation poisoning in Bethesda, Maryland hospital. Okay. And this gentleman took on the US government. And he fought for years. And behind me is a gift that I got because of the crusade he led, he got a $2 billion verdict to rebuild those islands. Now, it didn't bring his daughter back.
Right.
Okay. But what my point of telling you this story is I truly believe you got the horsepower to take on the media.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thanks.
You know, and
You have the personality for it.
well,
I feel it too. So
The
it's really nice
tenacity.
to hear
yeah,
it.
no,
Yeah.
I really, I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it, because this guy who, if you were to meet him, would not think of him as someone capable of taking on the U.S. government and getting the largest judgment in the history of the world for an environmental case. $2 billion, that's with a B, not an M,
Wow.
$2 billion verdict, and all from this guy. And you, with your personality, with your gifts, with your story, which is so over the top fascinating, and plus this is an ethical issue that needs to be called out. You know, you've both identified, all three of us, I think, have identified problems in this area. And I want to give a shout out to Fielding. You know, Fielding is a school a lot of people have heard of because there's no football team. Well, yeah. Well, I happened to go there, and the guy in the office next to me went there. There's 3 PhDs here, and the other PhD who's here is a professor at Pepperdine. So,
Oh my gosh.
you're amongst.
Universe is working.
Yeah.
All we need is the orange car.
Yeah, right.
Well, and Pepperdine's a great university, but Fielding, I mean, my doctoral advisor went undergrad to MIT, then he went to Stanford for grad school, then he went to theological school at Yale, and then he ended up at Columbia in sociology, which is my specialty.
Wow.
So the training there is great. And I think with that background, if that's where you end up going, you have what it takes to take on the media, just like my buddy John here took on the US government, you know, and get a great verdict. So I just am really excited about watching you continue to thrive, because thriving is not like, okay, I'm here, I'm thriving, I'm done.
I'm done.
Okay, can I go home now?
Right.
You know,
Can I move on?
it's a stage.
Yeah.
You know, and you're going to revisit the survival stage, and you're going to revisit even some of the dive stage and some of the anger and some of the depression. It's rinse and repeat, but you're clearly solidly on the thrive stage. So I'm just like, you know, go Jessie,
Go
you know,
for it.
because this is
Hey, Jessie.
this story's not over.
No, it's
No,
not.
I feel like it's just starting. For
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
personally. I mean, I'm at year 4 of no drink, of eliminating alcohol from my diet. And so since then, I've just really been able to, I would say this past year is when I'm really like, let's do this. All
That's
right.
so
I
good.
feel like I'm healing enough to where I can take on bigger adventures.
Yeah.
And it's just like every day I'm more motivated. Like I'm getting a degree in, I don't know when, I don't know how.
It'll
But
happen.
I'm getting a degree. I'm going to go become Dr. Jessie, get a doctorate. I want to go to Fielding. I've already researched their program. They have a great media
It's
psychology
exceptional.
program.
Yeah.
And so I really just think I can do it, and I want to do it. And all the signs are like, literally the universe gave me this gift of a life story and this experience of being railroaded by the media, but not being the direct target, but seeing how damaging it can be, and knowing that I'm not alone in that, and that no one else is going to care about it, because no one else is like, you know, like people do things because they're passionate about it, and they're usually passionate about it because they went through it and they want to change it.
Right.
And so like the club we're in, Tanya, not many people have necessarily gone through what we went through.
Yeah.
But we are here now and we want to change it.
Exactly.
I want to change it. You know, it's done.
I'll be
have
part
done
of
this
Team
enough.
Jessie.
For real. I mean,
Yeah.
I almost killed myself because of it all.
Yeah.
You know, and so no, I don't want anyone else to get to that point. I don't want any other child of someone infamous or regularly famous to feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't want someone that went viral for doing something stupid in math class to not, you know, killing themselves a year later because they can't handle all the crap that comes along with it. Like,
Exactly.
Let's put some safety measures in place. Let's put our stories out there. Let's create a community for these people to come to. Being infamous by association is not fun or easy. And changes need to be made. And obviously they're not going to be made with the current people in charge of that, because they are still operating in old mentalities of salacious, of sex cells. We got to shock them and value, blah, 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 blah. No, who says?
Yeah.
Who says?
Break the
Let's
cycle.
try something different.
Break the cycle.
Plain and
you're so
simple.
passionate about it. So here I am, I'm thinking, okay, in my head, I'm asking myself this question. Why wasn't I so affected by the media as much as you? And I think it's because the huge age difference. Like my brain was already developed, maybe one more year. Or maybe 10 more years after that, who knows? But with you were such a small kid. You were 9 years old when this happened, and your brain like sucked everything in. So I think that because the age difference, that is what's driving you right now, because I never would have thought. It's like, okay, it's an experience, whatever, it happened, but with you, it's like your life was so hard from 9 to 30, 30 years old.
Right. And it's not going to get any better unless some changes start getting made. Because I can't sit down for another fucking interview and have you tell me to do it again when a helicopter comes by.
Yeah.
Or have me do your voiceover for the beginning, saying May 19th, 1992.
It's like, oh God.
Joey Buttafuoco slept with a 19, it's like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop chewing me up and spitting me out. I've seen you do it to my parents. I've seen you do it to your family, Tanya. I've seen the media do this to so many people.
Yeah.
And Monica Lewinsky. I mean, all of these
all
people,
of them.
and it's just like, enough.
Yeah.
How much longer are we going to be doing this? You're killing people.
Yeah.
And
it almost killed you
directly, but you're creating environments that people cannot tolerate that make them want to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on.
And that's what's happening.
And that's not okay with me.
Yeah.
And I was almost there myself. And now that I'm not, I just, I got to do something about it.
That's why I'm thinking, like you've said it a couple of times during these episodes, where maybe that's why God put me through this, hellacious story, so I can do this work. But it's so true, because like I said, it started at 9, and your life really, even though you were functioning, it really was a hot mess up until the age of 30.
No. Yeah. I only am now feeling that, this is what I maybe could have been like.
Yeah.
If all that didn't go that way.
So, so you know what? Sometimes we need to look at our tragedies and traumas as, blessings.
Yes.
As you're going through it, you're like, why is this happening? We all have said that, and it's like, this isn't fair. But, sometimes when the timing is right, when healing is like you're going through the healing or you're at the end of the healing, it's like, okay, now I see the blessing in all of it. It took 30 years, right? It took, many years for me too. So it's like, but eventually you get to go, you get to that mindset where it's like, okay, I can see the good in this now.
And I'm turning my pain into power.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's not that you'll ever be grateful for your tragedy, Jessie, in terms of your mom being shot by, a 17-year-old prostitute.
Oh yeah, no,
You'll
absolutely
never be
not.
grateful for your tragedy losing your sister.
No.
I'll never be grateful. Oh, gee, I got to go have open heart surgery. But we can be grateful for the lessons.
Yeah.
There can be gratitude for the wisdom or the insights or the ability to help others.
Yeah.
That came out of that.
So
I'd rather have gratitude.
I'd rather have my sister back than do this. Believe me. I love y'all.
Right.
I love helping people. But to tell you the truth, I would rather have my sister here with me
down at the beach,
hanging out and all of that. And then, not going into a psych unit, attempting 2 suicides.
Right.
Like, come on. No, I would rather have my sister here. But, we have a choice to either sit, sulk, and feel sorry for ourselves, or try to make a difference in somebody's life. It took me a while to share my story. It's taken you a while for you to share yours, but again, it's not in our time, it's in their time, his time, whatever your God is, it's always in his time. You know? Yeah.
So, and you mentioned a book. You're thinking about a book. When should we start looking from a book from Dr. Jessie?
Well, I've got a lot of ideas in my head.
Okay.
Obviously a memoir, just to kind of get the facts out. I want to call it No Ifs, Ands, or Buttafuocos about it. I would love to even do down the road, like a scripted series about it. I think it could be fascinating. Even just like I can visualize the Madonna incident as a great, episode, things like that. I think it would be kind of interesting to do. Cause I also I like production. I like shows. That's what I do, produce, I've done a ton of that stuff. And so it's always like, I don't necessarily want to use my name and my story, but like, girl, use your name and your story.
Right.
And all my skills that I have are production and film. I've got a lot of friends in story production, TV, like I'm Hollywood. That's kind of just what I do and what I've always wanted to do. I mean, even when baby Jessie was trying to get discovered in front of the cameras when they first started showing up.
In front of the crime scene tape.
Right. And so where was I going with that though?
Well, I think the point is that you turn on the TV and you watch a guy making a model airplane in his garage. It's like your story blows that one away. I think your story, when Tanya told me about you, it's like, wow, this is going to be really interesting. And then of course it's 100x what my expectations were. But there's so much of the story that the public, in other words, people like me, don't get. And it's a fascinating, and the insights, they're valuable insights. So I think I rather turn on the TV and watch, a documentary or a movie about what really happened, along with the peripheral fallout and the damage that it caused, the media's role in that, and kind of telling the media, hey, as long as you're going to be telling people's story, that's a real responsibility, and do it responsibly. I mean, we all want to know the story. We're all, very curious about the stories, but do it in a way that we can look back and say you didn't do more damage. Yeah. Enough damage has been done by this horrible situation. Don't compound it by telling the story in a way that gets a few more cheap, views.
Like when FX came out with, I forgot what the name of it was. It was like that 10-week series that Jeffrey Toobin did.
American Crime Story?
No, it's the one with Travolta and Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah.
So that was all sensationalized. I can't even talk anymore. But majority of that stuff wasn't even true. But then ESPN did a series called OJ Made in America, and that was fascinating. I was part of it, and I couldn't watch it right away because it was just way, like I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. And I recently just saw the FX series, I think like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
So I sat on it for a while, but with OJ Made in America, that was top notch. They won an Oscar for it. I mean, it was really like legit because they brought in the history of the African or American African, community, equated it to OJ Made in America. Like there is a history that led up to that event. And, and of course they showed, the people on the freeways and, the signs, the protesters and that stuff I didn't see because we went underground. We didn't go through the front and we didn't see all of that unless it was like on our four corners of Monarch Bay and Pacific Coast Highway. But that was really beautifully done. It was respectfully done. But anything outside of that, it was Hollywood, like ridiculous. I'm sitting there just going, are you serious? Like this is ridiculous. And nobody told us that, that Cuba or what's his name, Jeffrey Toobin was even going to write that movie. Yeah. So, yeah. But there's a good way to do it. And then there's a bad way to do it.
And I think it's about controlling your own narrative. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'd like to do some public speaking. I'd like to, maybe do some college tours or something like that. I don't know. I'm just kind of getting started in all this.
Super
so
cool.
I'll help you do that.
I would love that.
I've got a list of colleges with phone numbers. So
that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm learning to also
because you definitely, you have a story and, even like if you're, speaking on the college campuses, talking about the media, talking about media psychology and the detriment that it can have on somebody's psyche.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I got just a couple more wrap-up questions. First, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think I say that for you too, Tanya.
Oh, yeah.
Just for hanging out the whole day. I hope you feel like you've had the chance to tell your story your way. That's what we want. We don't have an agenda other than you have a fascinating story. Let's hear it. And every nook and cranny of it.
Yeah, y'all got the nooks and the
oh, good. I know we went way over. Yeah.
But you're asking the good questions. And what I like is you're listening. Yeah. You're listening. And then you have a beautiful way of saying, let me see if I heard you right. Yeah. And you kind of summarize what I just said, but in a different way. And like it validates it. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
we hear you.
I'm going to ask you kind of an awkward question, and we can edit out if you don't want to answer it. But if you were down at the supermarket and you turn the corner, going from the frozen section to the produce, and there in front of you was Amy Fisher.
Ooh.
What would you say?
I thought you were going to ask if my dad was there.
Well, we covered your dad.
I actually shop at a mart that I know he don't shop at. So
Okay. I think we covered your dad.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting because I've never actually seen her in person.
Yeah.
Ever. And so she's just this Disney villain type of thing to me,
Right.
where she only exists on this digital or printed plane.
Right.
So I wonder. I don't know. That question has been asked to me a few different times in my life, and immediately it would be like, well, I don't think I'd be able to control my body, and I'd probably kick her ass. But I don't think I'd do that anymore. I don't know. I don't think I'd confront, because she's also a very just a trash human being, always has been. And unfortunately, she never made anything of herself after this event. Like, I'm all about when people do something fucked up and then they can say, oh, that was bad, but like, let me help the other people not do it,
Right.
or just, turn your tragedy into something
Right.
positive.
Be of
She didn't do
service.
that. She never sought that. And I think she's got her own psychopathy and things going on like that, and psychosis and
You
whatnot.
think?
And extreme narcissism too. But, she continues to, sex work is work. Do you, if that's how you pay your bills. But, you had opportunities to maybe do something different and you didn't.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know if I'd waste my time with her.
Hmm.
I don't, saying something to her would, it's not going to do
Useless.
anything.
Right.
I had one opportunity to talk to her in 2008. She was a guest on the Howard Stern show, and the producers had called me and they're like, she's going to be here. Do you want to say anything? And I was like, yes. And so I called in, and they had her on the show for like 4 minutes. And then Howard goes, so we have Mary Jo's daughter, Jessie, on the line. She'd like to say something to you. And Amy said, oh, I don't want that, and started to take her headphones off. But before she did that, I was like, well, I didn't want you to come to my house and shoot my mom in the face, but that happened. And I think that was a little aggressive at the time. I was in my early 20s.
Did you actually say that?
I did.
And it went on air.
on the air?
It's one of the top 10 moments of the Howard Stern On Demand Hall of Fame 2008. Because she proceeded to take her headphones off and left the studio. And so she didn't talk to me. She left.
Howard.
And Howard talked to me after for about 20 minutes. And it was a riveting conversation, because I was like, listen, I wasn't coming on your program to berate this woman, yell at this woman. I was actually here because she had young children at the time, to let her know, as the child of this particular triangle, my life has been extremely difficult because y'all continue to make crappy choices.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if you want to help your children, like, being Joy Buttafuoco's daughter was already enough, but could you imagine being Amy Fisher's kids?
Oh,
yeah. And what that means, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of trying to warn her, almost, of like, listen, you are bringing children into this world. And as a child of this situation, it sucks. So you could either maybe try to change or do something better, because what you're doing to these children is rocking their world.
yeah.
And she never got that memo, because she left before
That
she
would
hear
have
it.
been so perfect for her to hear, whether she would have heard it or not.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So I've never, if I ran into her, I would probably, she wouldn't know who I was. I don't think she'd recognize me. And, there's no, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd
Well, I
wanna,
get
but
it.
at the same time, I'd want to, break a jar of pasta sauce over her head. I don't know. It depends. What's on the shelf? And I just don't know. I don't know if I'd roll up to her and I'd turn into this beast or not.
You don't know until you're confronted
I
with
don't know.
it. Yeah. People have asked me that too. And I'm like, oh, he's just vapor. But then if I see him, it's like,
Might be different.
It might be different. Exactly.
I
You never
might
know.
be different. I just don't know.
Yeah,
Or
I
I'd
don't
be
know
like, hey,
either.
what are the numbers of your children? Because they probably need my help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I kind of got out of it, you said something that was really got my ears perked up, and that is that, there was a time where you definitely would have. Yeah. It sounds like you've obviously given that kind of question a lot of thought.
That happened to my brother's friend once. After she was released from jail back on Long Island, my brother's best friend was at a sandwich shop, and she went in to get a sandwich, and he was sitting there. And she came in, and it paralyzed him with fear.
Wow.
He didn't do anything or say anything, but and that was a big fear of mine after she was released, of every time I go back to visit to New York, am I going to run into her? Never happened.
You just don't know until you're faced with it.
But I loved what you said about accepting the reality that people make some mistakes, and some of them are horrifically big mistakes, but you sound like you have a lot of respect for those who take ownership of it and will have the humility to say, hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I messed up.
Which we won't hear from a lot of these sociopaths and narcissists.
Never.
But you're willing to extend the grace that people can turn their lives around and hope that they do.
Right.
It sounds, and I didn't get a hint.
And I'm all about that.
That you
Me
wish
too.
her ill will. I didn't get a hint that was
No, because
part
her
of you.
life has already been ill will.
Yeah.
Me wishing that on someone else just does nothing but make me toxic and
But,
sad.
but,
exactly.
but I admire the fact that a lot of people go through horrific things and they're caught into this battle of continuing rage,
Right.
and they can't get out of it.
I had it towards her.
Yeah,
So
and
long.
I don't say that judgmentally. I think that's kind of a normal, natural process, but sounds like you've processed that successfed
Thank
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you one last question. I just want to say thank you again before I ask this question.
Butter me up
so
before you
grateful.
hit me with the hard
No.
I see what you're doing. I'm like, what's he gonna ask?
Gee, I got to think of something really mean to ask. No, I just want you to have the last word. Just share anything you want in terms of who you are, where you've been, where you are, where you're going, so that you have the last word.
Oh man, well, you may see me now, but you ain't seen nothing yet. How about that? That's the last word.
Okay.
I mean, go ahead and listen to episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if you want to hear all the words I've said today.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that no matter what we go through, it's important to be compassionate towards other people's experiences. We never know, what's going on in someone's world.
Yeah.
And keeping that in mind, even a smile can brighten someone's day.
For sure.
Even a, hey, how you doing can go a long way,
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest takeaways from me, what I've learned is I've learned to really listen to my intuition. So if you have a gut feeling about something, do it,
It's right.
follow that.
Yep.
If it's to murder somebody, don't do that. But, if it's, even something random, like say hi to that person, say hi to that person.
Yep.
Because that person, for whatever reason, needed to hear it.
Exactly.
We don't know why or whatever, but I think kindness can go a long way.
Acknowledge people too. Acknowledge people. Let them know you matter. I mean, even when I walk by homeless people, I always say hello.
Yeah,
Always.
they're people.
Yeah,
People
they're
are
people.
people.
Mhm.
Humans are human beings in all shapes and forms, you know? And so I think it's just important to acknowledge that struggle. And just, I don't know, just live long and prosper or whatever they call that.
Yeah.
It can take you down. But it's okay. You don't have to live in that space, whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, thank you. Say hello to your mother, Mary Jo, for us. And
I'm sorry she was supposed to be here, everybody.
well, I think we're
We're going to invite her.
I think that's going to happen. But I think it's a blessing in disguise because your story in and of itself is so rich and fulfilling
Yeah.
that I think that this worked out for the best. I really do.
It really
And
did.
We would love
It really
to talk
did.
to your mom. And, and also I just want to extend I think, as I've already expressed, you're going to be doing some amazing things. We're going to be keeping our eyes on you, and you're welcome back here anytime.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Share your story anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
baby.
post-traumatic thriving, where we learn how to dive, survive, or thrive.
The choice is yours.
All right. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.